At 16, he wrote a rap against injustice. The school tried to silence him. What happened next? Shaped a congressman. It started with a beat, a cheap mic, a cracked laptop, and one teenage boy with too many thoughts for his age. He called it Truth Bleeds First, a home-recorded rap. 2 verses, 38 bars. Most people never heard it. But one line made its way through the school. They badge up, but beat down. Protect who, not me. It was raw, it was loud, and it hit too close. Zohran was 16, thin-framed, hoodie pulled tight. The kind of kid teachers liked until he made them uncomfortable. When the principal called him in, the tone wasn't parental. It was political. This is unacceptable. You've upset several faculty members. He asked which part was wrong. The room went silent. Because nothing in the lyric was false. But truth, it turns out, doesn't need to be false to make people uncomfortable. They handed him a letter. Pre-written, polished, an apology. All he had to do was sign it. Say he was sorry for the disruption. Not for lying, not for inciting, just for being too loud with the truth. He read the letter, folded it once, put it in his backpack, then walked out. Didn't sign, didn't apologize. Didn't speak for the rest of the day. Because some silences speak louder than verses. That night he uploaded the track anyway. No hashtags, no tags. Just the title, Truth Bleeds First. It stayed up for 2 hours. Then came down. Monday morning, the school counselor told him, "We want to support your creativity, but not at the cost of school safety." Zohran looked her in the eye and asked, "Since when did truth become dangerous?" She didn't answer. She just checked a box on a form. But someone was listening. An English teacher, quiet, tall, black, mid-40s. He stopped Zohran in the hallway. Didn't scold, didn't warn, just said, "You're not wrong. You're just early." Then walked away. That moment, it didn't go viral. No cameras, no protests, no district hearings. Just a hallway, a whisper, and the seed of something bigger. Because 10 years later, that same boy with the same eyes and the same cadence in his voice was standing in the New York State Assembly, wearing a beanie, holding a stack of handwritten notes, and ending his speech with a line that made the chamber fall silent. If truth makes you tremble, then maybe you're not fit to govern its people. People clapped. Some stood. But no one knew. That was the same boy they tried to silence. Same verse, same rhythm, different mic. Zohran was the kind of kid teachers called eloquent. Straight A's, perfect attendance, debated like a college student. But when he opened his mouth about things they didn't want to hear, suddenly he was disruptive. He wasn't looking for a fight. He was looking for air. And rap was where he found it. Not in textbooks, not in test prep, but in the pauses between kicks and snares. That's where he spoke the language that didn't need grading. He grew up in Queens, son of immigrants. Dad drove cabs. Mom worked with tenants' rights groups. Dinner wasn't about dessert. It was about dignity. The first time he wrote a bar about police brutality, it wasn't for school. It was for himself. But by sophomore year, he'd stopped hiding the notebook. He rapped in the lunchroom, recorded in friends' basements, posted tracks on private SoundCloud accounts. Dimrainarin and most teachers just nodded. He's expressing himself, until he expressed something they weren't ready for. The track, Truth Bleeds First, was different. Not because it was better, but because it named names. The lyric didn't say some officers. It said uniforms that knock first, shoot second. Didn't say systemic issues. It said they license violence with a badge. No metaphors, just mirrors. Within 24 hours of posting it, he was called into the front office. Not for discipline, for containment. They didn't want headlines. They wanted silence. They told him he was risking his academic future, that if this content made it off campus, it could misrepresent the school. He asked if anything he said was false. They didn't say no. They didn't say yes. They just handed him the apology. At home, his mom read the letter twice, then said, "Do what you think keeps your soul alive." At school, he did what no one expected. He stopped rapping. Not forever, just publicly, because they couldn't suspend what didn't exist. But they'd already done it. They'd taught him that truth has a cost, and that the cost isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's isolation. Friends pulled back. Teachers gave tight smiles. Counselors talked to him slower. He wasn't dangerous. He was inconvenient. And nothing threatens authority like a kid who makes others uncomfortable without breaking a rule. Then came Mr. Thompson. Room 214, English black, older than the rest. Didn't smile much. He handed back a paper with no grade, just a note. Your rhythm doesn't need rhyme to matter. That was it. No pep talk. No, you can be great. Just that. A week later, Zohran stayed after class. Asked, "Do you think I was wrong?" Mr. Thompson didn't answer right away. He just said, "They teach you how to write essays, but they never teach you how to hold a pen when truth makes your hand shake." It wasn't a green light, but it wasn't a red one either. It was the first time anyone made space for the idea that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the one causing the disruption. Maybe he was just naming it. That's when something shifted. He didn't get louder. He got sharper. He started writing again. Not to post, to remember. Because if the world wouldn't keep his words, he would. The second meeting wasn't about conversation. It was about correction. He was told to sit, to listen, to reflect. The vice principal leaned forward, reading from a folder like it was scripture. "Your lyrics have caused concern. We've had calls from parents." He nodded. Not because he agreed, because he knew. They weren't asking. They were expecting. He looked at the form again. A typed apology. Polite, safe. "I regret any disruption my words may have caused." It wasn't his voice. It was theirs. The irony wasn't lost on him. They wanted him to write, to edit, to revise, but only when it served the silence. He brought the letter home. His mom read it slowly, then asked, "Is this how you feel?" He shook his head. She folded the paper. Didn't rip it, just folded it once, then slid it into a drawer. Then don't say it. But the pressure didn't end at home. Friends were nervous. College counselors cautious. One said, "This could follow you. Admissions don't like controversy." Another asked, "Why can't you just say sorry and move on?" He didn't blame them. They were just playing the game. But he didn't come here to win a game. He came to learn how it was rigged. So instead of signing the letter, he wrote a new verse. Not public, not online, just one page. Handwritten, left on Mr. Thompson's desk after class. It read, "They want my mouth clean, but my memories stay dirty. If they want me silent, why teach me how to see?" He didn't wait for feedback, didn't ask for approval. He just kept showing up, head up, voice quiet, mind louder than ever. Weeks passed. The school never mentioned the apology again, but the air around him changed. He wasn't punished. He was pre-canceled. Teachers stopped calling on him. His poetry submission didn't make the spring showcase. He wasn't excluded, just unseen. And that invisibility hurt more than suspension ever could. That's when Mr. Thompson pulled him aside again. Same room, same dry air, same man who always waited before speaking. He handed Zohran a CD. Unmarked, plastic, plain. "Backup," he said. "Of your first track. The one they tried to erase." Zohran stared. "Why'd you keep it?" Thompson replied. "Because memory is a form of protest. It wasn't an endorsement, wasn't absolution. It was permission to remember, to archive, to not rewrite himself for their comfort." After that, Zohran changed how he showed up. He still aced the tests, still said thank you and yes ma'am, but inside, he was storing everything, every slight, every silence, every erased line. And when he got accepted to college, he brought the CD with him, not as proof, as reminder, that once they tried to teach him to apologize for seeing too clearly. He never played it for anyone, not then. But he kept it, because someday he knew he'd need to remember the exact sound of who he was before they tried to edit him out. College was loud, but not in the way Zohran expected. The protests were curated, the outrage scheduled. Activism had office hours, and no one rapped anymore, they just retweeted. Zohran kept quiet, not out of fear, out of fatigue. He didn't want to go viral. He wanted to go deep. Sophomore year, he took a course called Memory and Resistance. One assignment: bring an object from your past that no longer fits your present. Most students brought yearbooks, old trophies, photos of exes. Zohran brought a blank CD, plastic case, smudged label. No one noticed, until the professor picked it up and asked, "What's this?" He paused, then said, It's my first deletion. The class chuckled nervously. He didn't laugh. He just added. They said it was too angry for a school project, too political for a kid. Too soon. The professor asked, "Do you still have the file?" Zohran nodded. "I don't play it, but I don't delete it either." That night he listened again, alone, in his dorm, for the first time in 6 years. The audio quality was rough. The flow, unpolished. But the fire, untouched. Each line was a timestamp not of talent, but of truth, and in the second verse he heard a line he had forgotten he ever wrote. "One day I'll need this bar to remind me I saw the cracks before they taught me to call them character." He paused the track, stared at the screen, and whispered to himself. I wasn't angry. I was accurate. That's when he made a decision. Not to perform, not to release, but to rewrite. Not the same track, a new one, built from the same fire, but forged with new tools. He called it unapologetic memory. No beats, no chorus, just spoken word over ambient noise. Minimal, deliberate. He recorded it in one take, no edits, then sent it to one person, Mr. Thompson. No subject line, just an email with a link. The reply came 2 days later. "I see you found your voice again. Now aim it higher." Zohran didn't post the track, didn't tweet it, but he started carrying it again on a thumb drive, in his wallet. Not for show, for shield, because sometimes the best way to move forward is to take something old with you so they can't pretend it never happened. Politics didn't feel like a calling, it felt like a dare. Someone said, "You talk a lot about systems. Why don't you run and build one?" At first he laughed. Then he stopped laughing. Because maybe what they needed wasn't another polished candidate. Maybe they needed someone who knew how it felt to be asked to shrink in public for the comfort of people in power. Zohran didn't campaign like a politician. He knocked on doors in sneakers, kept his beanie on, spoke like a kid who never forgot the lunchroom. When reporters asked about his background, he didn't start with where he went to school. He started with what almost got him expelled. "I wrote a rap. It told the truth. They told me to apologize. I said no." Some people rolled their eyes. Others leaned in, especially the ones who knew. Sometimes the most honest thing about a person is what they said before they knew how to say it politely. One night, just weeks before the election, he was invited to a candidate forum. Final question, if elected, what's one thing you promise never to compromise? The other candidate said integrity, transparency, constituents. He paused, then said, "My right to tell the truth in a language that's not yours." The room went quiet, and for the first time he felt what it was like to rap without rhyme and still make the walls shake. He won, not by a landslide, not with a machine behind him, but with something sharper, memory. In his first address at the assembly, he brought no speech, just a folded sheet of notebook paper. Handwritten. He stepped up, cleared his throat, and said, "I was once told to apologize for seeing too clearly. Now I write laws with the same eyes." Then he read aloud the first verse from Truth Bleeds First. No edits, no disclaimers, just 16-year-old Zohran speaking through 29-year-old Zohran to a room full of suits who'd never had to rap to survive silence. Some called it grandstanding, others called it reckless, but someone in the gallery stood and whispered, "Finally." He didn't do it for applause. He did it because the track was never about attention. It was about acknowledgement, that what almost got him expelled had actually prepared him to lead. He didn't plan for it to spread. That day in the assembly, he read the verse with the same calm he used when helping neighbors file rent complaints. No stage voice, no dramatic pauses. Just truth, raw, unfiltered. But someone in the back row filmed it, a shaky vertical video. Posted with the caption, "A New York assemblyman just dropped a teenage bar in his first speech, and it landed harder than any policy promise." By midnight, it had over 200,000 views. By morning, it had a nickname, the verse they tried to expel. Old classmates started sharing stories. Someone dug up a screenshot from the SoundCloud page before the school made him take it down. Another found a forum thread from 2011 debating whether students should be allowed to rap about police. No one expected this much memory to survive that long. But it did. 'Cause even when institutions forget the internet, when it wants to remembers everything, a journalist reached out asking, "Was that really from a teenage song?" Zohran just smiled and replied, "Some things don't age, they just arrive late. Talk shows debated it. Educators discussed it. Rappers quoted it. One major artist even tweeted, 16 and saying what most grown men won't. Respect to it, Zohran Mamdani." But the most important comment came quietly. A message in his inbox from an unknown user. "I was in 8th grade when they silenced you. I remember thinking if they can shut you up, what chance do I have?" He read it twice. Didn't reply. But the message stayed with him. Not as flattery, as fuel. Because this wasn't just his verse anymore. It belonged to every kid who'd been told their voice was too loud before they even learned how to use it. He started getting invites. Universities, podcasts, youth conferences. They all wanted to talk about the speech. But he kept declining. Not because he was afraid, but because he knew. The verse didn't need more explanation. It needed more echo. Instead of speeches, he shared the original CD. Uploaded it to a private archive. No promo, no clickbait. Just a title, "If You're Still Listening." By week's end, the clip had crossed 1 million views. But Zohran hadn't posted once about it. Because sometimes the truest protest is refusing to capitalize on what they once tried to erase. The number was unfamiliar. Area code 347. He almost didn't pick up. But something about the timing 10:43 p.m. felt intentional. He answered. "Hello?" A quiet breath. Then, still got that CD. It had been over a decade, but he knew that voice. "Mr. Thompson, room 214. The man who taught silence without making it feel like surrender." Zohran smiled. "Still got it. Still remember why." The line went quiet again. Then Thompson said, "I saw the speech. No congratulations, no pride. Just presence." They talked. Not long, but enough. Thompson was retiring. Said he'd been cleaning his classroom and found a copy of the same letter the school asked Zohran to sign. He kept it, framed it, not as a threat, as a reminder of the day a student taught the staff what integrity looked like. "I wanted to call you before I forgot," how he said. Zohran didn't respond right away. Not because he didn't have words, but because no one had ever told him his refusal to apologize was something worth remembering. They spoke of the hallway moment. The "you're not wrong, you're just early." Thompson admitted, "I said that because I needed to hear it too. You were brave enough to say what I never did." Silence again. Then Zohran asked, "Why did you back me then?" Thompson chuckled, "Because I knew the system, and I knew what it does to kids like you when you start naming what they work hard to camouflage." He continued, "Every school has its rhythm, but the second a student changes the beat, even slightly, they call it noise." Zohran sat on the edge of his bed, shoes still on, streetlights cutting lines through the blinds. This wasn't closure, it was continuity, the unfinished chapter finally given its page. Before hanging up, Thompson said, "You turned a deleted file into a doctrine. That's not politics, that's legacy." Zohran blinked hard, whispered, "Thank you, sir." But the final words didn't come from him. They came from Thompson. "Don't stop writing, even when they stop listening." Then the line cut, and in that silence, Zohran realized what they shared wasn't just a story. It was proof that somewhere in every system designed to suppress, there's always one person who passes you the pen instead of taking it away. The day of the speech he didn't rehearse. He'd written it by hand, not because he feared teleprompters, but because some words deserve to bleed ink before they touch microphones. He wasn't speaking to the assembly this time. He was speaking to students. A public high school in Brooklyn. Not elite, not underfunded. Just honest. The kind of place where futures are still soft clay. Where teachers do more therapy than curriculum. Where lunchroom debates sound more like democracy than most campaign floors. The auditorium buzzed. Teachers hushed kids. A few scrolled their phones. But many looked up not because he was a politician, but because someone had told them. He once got in trouble for saying something true. Now they call him Assemblyman. He stepped up, held no papers, wore no suit. Just the same beanie, same voice, same weight in his chest. He didn't open with credentials. He opened with memory. "I once stood in a hallway, just like this," he said. Same linoleum floors, same classroom posters, same rule book that never had a section on what to do when you see something that doesn't sit right. He told them about the rap, the letter, the silence. Not to inspire, to clarify. I didn't get here because I was brave. I got here because I refused to lie to stay comfortable. Eyes stayed up. One kid near the back whispered, "Damn." He spoke of Mr. Thompson, the call, the CD, how the verse they tried to delete was now part of the public record. And then he paused, long enough for them to lean in. Then he said, "Here's what they won't teach you. Apologies aren't always noble. Sometimes they're tools used to make you doubt what you saw so others can stay seated in peace." He let that land, saw it ripple across faces. Some nodded, some stiffened, but no one looked away. Then his final lines, not written, remembered. They told me to erase what I felt. To keep the room calm, I told them peace built on silence is just violence waiting in line. Silence. Then applause. Not thunderous, but sincere. Teachers wiped eyes. Students sat still longer than the bell required. Afterward, one girl came up. 9th grade. Backpack unzipped. Eyes full of things not yet said. She handed him a folded paper. "This is my poem," she whispered. "They said it was too angry, but I think maybe it's just early." He nodded, took the paper, didn't unfold it yet, just said, "Keep writing, they'll catch up." It was a Tuesday, just another English class. Public school, Bronx, mid-March. The teacher, Miss Alvarez, had just handed out a new unit, poetry and protest. Half the kids groaned. A few perked up. One boy, Daniel, stayed silent. He always sat 3rd row from the back, hoodie up, eyes low, notebook full of lyrics he never read aloud. That day he slipped in a poem, titled, "They Told Me to Wait to Speak." It was short, 4 stanzas. Honest, sharp, a little angry. Miss Alvarez read it during lunch. She felt her throat tighten. Then she walked to the staff room and asked the vice principal, "Can we include this in the showcase?" He glanced, then frowned. "It's a bit direct. Parents might complain." She nodded, didn't argue, just printed out a transcript of a speech, the one Zohran gave in Brooklyn, highlighted 3 lines. Especially, peace built on silence is just violence waiting in line. Next day she opened class with a clip. Zohran speaking. No podium, no polish, just power. The room got quiet. Even the side conversations died. When it ended, Miss Alvarez asked, "What do you think he meant by that line?" No one spoke at first. Then Daniel said, "He means, when they tell us to wait, it's not because they're fixing it. It's because they hope we'll forget." A girl added, "Or that we'll get tired." Another, "Or scared." Miss Alvarez nodded, then asked, "So is that line too angry for a school event?" Silence again. Then Daniel, "Only if we still believe school's about keeping the adults comfortable." That day they didn't just approve Daniel's poem. They made it the opener. And beside it, they printed a quote from Zohran. "Memory is a form of protest." No big announcement, no TV cameras. Just one hallway bulletin board with a new kind of rhythm on it. And the quiet confidence of a kid who knew someone out there had once refused to apologize for sounding like him. There was a time when silence looked like survival. When staying quiet meant staying enrolled. When writing lyrics meant risking the future. When the truth was just a file you hid in a drawer and hoped no one found. But that time passed, and now something else is rising. Not noise, not rebellion, memory. Because the moment you tell a kid their voice is too raw, you teach them that safety comes from editing themselves. And the moment one of them refuses, you open a door that never closes again. Mamdani never ran for office to become famous. He ran because no one else had stood in that hallway and told him he wasn't wrong. He remembered what it felt like to be asked to apologize for not lying. He remembered the slow fade of friends. The cold silence of adults who thought kindness was just a softer way of saying conform. And he remembered the teacher who handed him a CD instead of a warning slip. That teacher didn't change the world, but he protected one verse long enough for it to come back with armor. Now Zohran does the same, not by giving speeches, by staying visible, by never deleting what once made people uncomfortable, by telling students, don't raise your voice unless your silence is being mistaken for agreement. Because silence is no longer a neutral act. It's a choice. And every time someone chooses to remember to archive, to speak, to pass forward even one line of truth, They weaken the systems that count on collective forgetting. This isn't about rap. It's about rhythm. The rhythm of refusing to flinch when asked to lie politely. The rhythm of keeping your verse even when the mic is off. The rhythm of knowing that being early isn't wrong. It's revolutionary. So when a new student steps into their own storm and someone says, "Careful, that might get you in trouble," let them remember, someone else once stood in that same rain. And instead of running, he wrote. If you're still here, it means something in this story echoed. Maybe it reminded you of a moment when you didn't speak, or when you did, and paid for it. Maybe it took you back to a classroom, a hallway, a folded note you never got to read out loud. Or maybe, just maybe, it made you think of someone you need to send this to. A student, a parent, a teacher who still believes that silence is the price of order. Here's the truth. This isn't about Zohran. This is about you. What you remember, what you archived, what you're still carrying from years they told you to forget. Because somewhere right now, another kid is writing. On a napkin, on their phone, in their head. And someone will try to convince them to make it quieter, softer, more polite. Before they do send them this, let them know someone refused before. And that refusal didn't end in punishment. It ended in purpose. You don't need to run for office. You don't need to rhyme. You just need to remember that truth spoken too early is still truth. And memory is a form of protest. If that matters to you, share the story. Not for likes, not for numbers. For someone who might need to hear a voice that sounds like their future. Because in the end, the last line, it belongs to you.